following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. It is, of course, match day. It's the final match day of the brand new Champions League format, as it's, I guess they're marketing it, Paul, as a battle of Britain. It's us against them. It's the Scottish League, that Farmers League, versus the big money bucks of the Premier League down south. In this case, it is Celtic against Aston Villa. In terms of ourselves, there's not really that much at stake other than more shekels in the bank. But for Aston Villa, it could be the difference between, similar to ourselves, playing another 2 legs or going straight into that very coveted top 8. And we're here to talk about it. We're here to cover it. Can't wait. As you can see to my side, it is one of my brothers here. It is Paul D. How you doing, my man? You up for this one?
Aye, up for it, Steve-O. Yes, thanks for having me again. On and off the channel at different times, but I'm trying to get as much involvement as I can, but other things in the way. But no, listen, we go down here full of anticipation. We've had a bit of a chopping and changing in the squad recently. We'll come on to that. There's been comings and goings, some good, some bad, but we've got Jota back and all the rest of it. We'll come on to it. But no, we go down there full of pride and optimism, and let's hope we make a good impression.
Absolutely. We'll get in about that, but before we do, the wee bit of housekeeping as always. Firstly, just to say, as you'll see along the ticker tape there, this is a pre-recorded episode, but do not let that put you off. Get involved, let us know your thoughts on this match and all the Celtic talking points, in the comments below. We always try our best to reply to the comments and we greatly appreciate the support. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Make sure you do the one thing that is the most important. It costs you nothing to do it. Hit that subscribe, hit that bell icon, join our community and show your support for the podcast. If you're a returning subscriber or one of our members, thank you very much. That continued support has gone a long way. If you want to help out with the run of the channel, membership $1.99 helps put all this together. And if you want to get us elsewhere, plenty of opportunities to do that. X at CWO Pod 1888. You'll get us in Blue Sky, you'll get us in TikTok. You can catch up on Spotify. Plenty of ways to support the channel. That's that bit in the bin. Paul, let's get down to business, because since the last time you've been on, mate, there's been a lot of stuff happening. Of course, we got through the game in maybe very surprising fashion against Young Boys of Bern. It was an OG very late on, albeit with the ball in the net multiple times, and what turned out to be, of course, a ghost hat-trick and the swan song for the now departed Kyogo. All change, and again, that match, very interesting. It echoed the last time we played them in '93, but it was also an OG at Celtic Park that gave us the win. But that secured safe passage to the next phase, and basically this one, it's a free hit, mate. So what have you thought so far of this Champions League journey for Celtic?
It's been brilliant. I mean, apart from that one result, which, obviously comes at the hands of a very, very well-known and superior kind of outfit that have done pretty well in Europe over the last wee while. Apart from that, we've been absolutely brilliant. When Rodgers came in, obviously, there was a lot of talk about him wanting to progress us in Europe. And here we are. We sit on the eve of a major game against a top team in England, which is effectively it's a dead rubber. So we just basically go into that. We've been brilliant.
That's the thing, as I say, in Europe, like nobody's going to ever go as far inside the club or that, or even our fans, let's be honest, to say there is such thing as a dead rubber. You go down there full enthusiasm, you really, really want to prove a point. But I think in terms of, if you were to apply the term dead rubber, it's more to do with, as we say, safe passage is secure for us. Could it improve our position? Of course it could. Could it give us a lot more money, shekels in the bank for this campaign? Absolutely, because there's the place pot to be thinking about, as well as the monetary value and getting either a point or a win. But as we say, it's kind of done and dusted for us in terms of the main objective, which was to go through, has been done. This, I'd like to think, is one that we could go into and we can enjoy. I wouldn't say the pressure's off, because it's going to be reputation, it's going to be for the bragging rights, isn't it? But it's a good place to be, because I think when we looked at the way the fixtures had come out, we looked towards this one and we thought, I hope there's nothing really riding on this match against Villa for Celtic come the end. And it's turned out that way, so it's worked out well, eh?
Yep, we're going down there. As I say, there's been great progress made. The last game there, I thought we were absolutely first class against Young Boys in the first half. Second half, I think we came off it a wee bit, and I was kind of about to be a bit critical of Rio Hatate, and he comes up with that ball, which Ida gets on, and then there's obviously the own goal. Sheer class, absolutely class, that pass. But no, the whole campaign as a whole has been absolutely great. Atalanta, obviously that sticks in the memory as well. But we go down there, and you really want to give a really good account of yourself. Well, they're on merit. We're not there. It's not a testimonial. We've had these games before where we've played it, English ties against, your Blackburn and your Liverpool, and there was obviously a lot to play for at that point. But we want to go down there and just make it very interesting. Obviously, we'll come on to the team for tomorrow, but there's a couple of players that will not be there. But, do you know what? We go down there and Rodgers will have us fired up because he's got the reputation as well coming up to the SPFL and leaving the sacred EPL for a job in Scotland. So he'll want to make a good impression as well.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to get down there, and that's the thing. As I say, it's also one of those games. I wouldn't say it doesn't have an edge on it. Obviously, if you want to always go that sort of north and south, Scotland, England sort of dynamic, there's always going to be that wee edge on it. In terms of Aston Villa, I wouldn't necessarily say we're going into it as a game where there's something of a wee bit of history or animosity. I believe this is actually the first time that we might have been playing Villa on such an occasion. I'm sure if people correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but it seems that Villa are almost one of these kind of neutral teams where hopefully you can just enjoy the occasion. And in terms of Unai Emery and the type of football he's got them playing, certainly if we play the way that we want to play and they play, it could be an open, it could be an expansive game, it could be one for not just ourselves as Celtic supporters, but for the neutral, it could be a good advert for basically British football and the Champions League in general.
It's great. It's great. When you think about the Champions League and before you go into these, the draw, we all get excited about the draw, and you kind of always think in the back of your mind it'd be really good to get a team from down south, just as a spectacle, as a, obviously the fans for that point of view, for an away day and everything else. I watched a bit of them. I watched a wee bit of them against West Ham, and obviously we'll come on to it, but they've got quite a kind of unique way of playing. I noticed, I don't know if Emery had all his teams playing like this, but it seemed quite obvious when they played West Ham that they didn't spread across the park. They were quite compact. And in terms of playing against them with wingers, they didn't seem to shut wingers down in the halfway line. They seem to let teams come at them into the last third, and then they seem to have this really aggressive kind of press. But Emery's record speaks for itself. He's a wily old fox, isn't he?
Absolutely. And European, that's where he's thrived. He's a fantastic European record in his various clubs that he's been at. And again, he's got Villa absolutely playing to get a good sort of standard, well punched above their weight, if you will. I mean, you look at where they are. They find themselves in they find themselves in that position where they're on 13 points. They are in 9th or just outside the top 8, and that's on goal difference by the factor of 1 goal. So, with no disrespect to Celtic, but being a home tie, we've been the last one with loads riding on it. They're probably looking at this as being an opportunity. Again, with no disrespect to Celtic, maybe that wee bit of Premier League arrogance will come in, that they're the big fish with the big money stars and they should be putting us to the sword. But when you look at it, they're one of 6 teams that are on 13 points. Such is how tight the margins of this new Champions League format are. So it's, in no uncertain terms, nothing other than a win for Aston Villa is what's going to be the result required there. And maybe just I know we'll get on it and we'll have our defensive deficiencies and it's going to be a changed back four again. But if you look at Dortmund aside, you look at, we were under the cosh constantly against Atalanta, coming at us, and we were able to absorb it, we were able to deal with it, and maybe that could potentially go in our favour if they're opening up so much that we can catch them on a break.
That's the thing. I mean, we have got a bit of strength and depth, albeit we've got a couple of players missing, but I think we can get down there and play a good expansive game. I don't really see us being fearful. There is that kind of psychological kind of step off that happens when there's been a goal, kind of like a, that point of the games where certain teams kind of come away from it if they've already got what they're looking for long term, in terms of titles or trophies or anything like that. But I think with everything that's to play for, we should just go down there and enjoy it. And I think with the team that we're going to have, it will be a wee bit of a change, a wee bit of a adaptation of what we've had recently, because I think we will miss Carter Vickers. But I just hope we go down there and express ourselves and enjoy it.
That's it. Well, we'll get on. We'll come back around the game, but just whilst we're saying that, because we're talking defensively, we're talking about changes, and that's all relevant because defence is something that we're going to have a wee look at. We know that Carter Vickers, we've just found out from the manager, he confirmed it yesterday that he felt something in the last game, so he was rested off, no training pictures as we saw, and it's been confirmed he's not going to take part. Now, there's no doubt about it, that is a massive loss, but he says that Carter Vickers should be good to go, ready to go for league action. Again, come back to what I says there. In terms of for us, other than reputation, a wee bit of pride and some money, there is nothing on the line in terms of progression for Celtic. So to me, it makes perfect sense. Had we needed to get something out of it, they might just have risked them.
Yeah.
But he's done this. We're playing a blinder there, and we've got far bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, if Rodgers is on a hiding to nothing, if he plays Carter Vickers and he picks up a worse injury, and then we lose him, for a longer period, and there's a lot of important football to be played with the bread and butter. We still have that wee gap, but we still have to go out there and make sure these games are put away. And I would rather Carter Vickers was there for the games. I would rather he was there tomorrow for this game against Villa as well. But you know what? We go with the players that we've got, and we'll go on with it.
So, I mean, in terms of that, that's obviously going to be... We're missing Maeda. We know that. He picked up that probably questionable red card to some. In my opinion, I've given it on it. I think that it's a red card. It doesn't fall into that dangerous and brutality sort of thing, or excessive violent conduct. It's a stupid... He lost the pot. He was getting fouled left, right, and centre off the guy. You could see when he went down, and he gets up and he takes a wee swipe at him. It's petulant, it's foolish, but it's one of the ones. And for whatever reason, he felt compelled to come out and apologise. But we're not going to have Maeda. We're not going to have Carter Vickers. They're two names that are going to be first on the team sheet. So we are going to be. We're at a deficiency, and then of course we take into the fact that we've also sold Kyogo. So again, Adamida, current form. It's an opportunity for him, but again, we're looking at three players pretty much across all departments of the pitch that you would rather have than not have going into this game, regardless of what's needed or not needed from our perspective.
It's leaving us with a wee bit of a kind of quandary as to what Rodgers will pick as his team. But what it does do is, he kind of touched on in his presser, was it gives other players a great opportunity to come in and stake a place. At the halfway point in the season, there's so much football to be played. And if there's one player that's got a point to prove and who's really wanting to keep the momentum going after his goal against the young boys is Adamida. Come on. Absolutely. He's got people down south that will remember him for his Norwich days. So, do you know what? It could be lined up. I did say before the young boys game to Paddy that it was lined up for Engels to come on, and it was set up perfectly for him, and that didn't quite happen. But do you know what? You can never tell, but I'm looking forward to it, and I hope he did grab the opportunity.
Desperately looking forward to it myself as well. And, as we say, so that Engels, both of us were sitting here and singing his praise. And I thought, in terms of that game, I reckon this is a great opportunity to be expressive. It's the kind of game that, again, we say this about them all, but playing against the likes of Villa, where it's a bit more, it's probably going to have a lot more open space. It's going to be a more open game. It's going to be more of a European style game. I think that's something that's probably going to suit in an atmosphere that undoubtedly somebody like Engels should be looking and thriving on, as with all our players. But yeah, I think that's one that first half, I thought it was good. I thought he had a good half. He then missed the penalty, and I thought it just sort of sank him a wee bit. But look, these things happen in football. We pick ourselves up, we move on. But we need to really start. So looking at what we're up against in terms of our back line, because that is going to, it's going to be a concern. Make no doubts about it. We're also seeing that it's going to be thin on options because, of course, it looks as if we'll probably go with a very sort of heavy left-sided back four, where it's going to be Trusty, it's going to be Scales, and of course it's going to be Taylor because Carter Vickers is out, Nawrocki's nowhere near it, and Welsh, he's out on loan. He would be another one that might fall in there, and of course big massive question marks over Alex Bailly. It's saying he's going to Como. We've all seen the pictures, but nothing has 100% come out, so let's be honest, he's not going to be there, is he? So we are very light at the back.
Yeah, I think Brendan said in that last press conference, the one once he arrived at the stadium at Villa, I think he basically said that he's in Barcelona. So I think that's the latest update, that he's definitely not travelled. So yeah, we're looking at Johnson, Trusty, Scales, and Taylor. Aye, and do you know what? It doesn't inspire. Without Carter Vickers, I'm not inspired anyway, because in my own opinion, when he plays, we play, as a team.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that we can, cobble it together. It's going to be a big atmosphere, and I'm hoping that will drag performances, through a few players will be on the agenda.
Absolutely. And again, we talk about points to prove and that. We've had Trusty's been down there. One of the worst going seasons with Sheffield United. Was part of that unfortunate side that are relegated and went out with a complete and utter whimper. So maybe a wee bit of sort of reputational damage there, but he's coming back with a more club of stature. He's wanting to prove himself. And we look, as we say, look at that Atalanta game, very similar, completely under it. We were under the cosh all the time, and he was an absolute monster in that game. He tackled, he cleared everything that moved. And we've also seen before, yes, all of Celtic players will say that. Celtic players, some cases, they're at Celtic because they don't have that extra 30%. Everyone's got a mistake in them. No one is perfect. But we've seen a man of the match performance out of Scales before in the Champions League. So again, there's absolutely no reason why these two guys, it just can't come together. They could gel, and that we could expect that we could potentially, as I said, potentially being the word. I always want to think Celtic are going to win and go and do the business. But I think if I let my head rule my heart, I'm looking for a draw here. And there's no reason why, from what we've seen from these guys, they do have performances in them. It's just about that happening on the day.
Aye, yeah. I mean, Villa Park is one of those kind of traditional, old school kind of stadiums down there, and I think it'll be rocking. It'll be a great atmosphere. As I touched on in one of my videos before, this season from back to front has been a lot of inconsistencies for various players, and really we just don't know what will kind of transpire tomorrow night. We've had great performances from Trusty, we've had inconsistency, we've had the same with Scales. There's been critics of Johnson. There's been critics of Greg Taylor. So
there's always critics of Taylor. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be the main man until other moves happen. So
yep.
We just have to. I mean, he's been a good servant to the club overall, but why he's got his deficiencies, like a lot of them. But we are where we are this season on merit, and they've all chipped in. While they've all got wee bits and pieces of form dips and everything else, but we are where we are. So we just have to get behind them, and I think it'll be a great game.
Well, before we jump into the game a wee bit, let's sort of pivot away and talk about that then. We're talking about, we just mentioned Alex Bailly's Como, it looks as if it's happening. There's, of course, that $6 million option if they want to trigger that at the end of the loan. Celtic are going to free that up to move on. And of course, it leaves us incredibly light at the left back. We've seen previously before, we've brought in Scales to sort of shore up at the end of a game, the left-hand side. But he's not a definitive left back. Of course, the big news is it says there, we've all seen Kieran Tierney, the manager's come out and confirmed, yes, that is agreed, that is a done deal. He is set to arrive in the summer. What's your thoughts on this? Because we've all sat here and says, I think that the important thing is getting it cemented, and then you can start the negotiations. You're going, look, he's coming, let's get it over the line. It would be complete and utter negligence, would it not? Whether you think Vi is the answer or not, to allow him to go if Tierney isn't going to be coming in permanently?
It does seem strange. It really does seem strange that there's been the development with Como, Vi, and then obviously there's been this chat about Tierney being kind of maybe over the line, and then if it doesn't happen, it'll happen in the summer. It does seem as if we're kind of thrashing away at that one, whereas we should have a cast iron plan well ahead of time. So I'm a wee bit quizzical as to the fact that we've got time, we've got a few days as it were, but we like to do our business late in the window traditionally, and that's when a lot of the deals are done at the 11th hour and what have you, but we should really be well ahead of the game in terms of knowing that this was a possible area.
Yeah.
Well, we've all known that this was an area that would need strengthened, and then the Greg Taylor contract thing. So, especially, I mean, we've got the upfront issue as well now that we've just lost our talisman. So, we really do have to get these positions bolstered it. And I think, again, going by some of the stuff that was said in the press conference once the team were down at Birmingham, Rodgers basically commented about, getting a replacement for Kyogo, and he mentioned the word getting a replacement in.
Yep.
So he's under no illusion as to what definitely he's done. He's no daft.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We look at it, I sort of harped on about it. We all knew with Tierney that he'd been turning down, he'd set his heart on wanting to come home, that was going to happen. Now, I just found it peculiar, and I said that in the last show, that it's taken so long to even get to this stage of the pre-contract agreement, because, as I says, get that done nice and early. You know he's going to come back. Let things speed up, and then you start that negotiation, start that hardball. I really think that it goes without that. This one for me is not even up for debate. It would be complete and utter negligence for us not to push that deal through. Like, particularly again, after this game, thinking beyond just one, simply for proper coverage at that position. But again, with the 2 games coming up, the 2 legs in the Champions League knockout, you want your best possible opportunity to get it in. Similarly, with Kyogo moving on, it would be complete and utter negligence and a disaster for us to have allowed that, to sanction that, without there being something solid and put in place. Now, as we've seen over the years, stranger things have happened. Celtic operate in peculiar ways, but I think from what you're saying, the way the manager's been speaking, when he was asked about, can you play Maeda through the middle? And yes, we can. But I like the way that he kind of batted that aside, and he didn't even give it a thought as if, yeah, that's an option. He just went, well, we've lost a striker, and I intend and want us to replace him with a striker. He didn't even give it any thought. He brushed it aside. And the way he's speaking, he seemed really assertive. He seemed really direct and positive. You've got to take a wee bit of comfort that there hopefully is something in the works there with that.
Yeah. I think the rumours that obviously that were abounding about Chris Garden, I mean, we're linked with him so many times. I can only imagine that there is some kind of opening of, bids, or something's going to go in over the next few days. I've watched a YouTube video, which I said I wouldn't do, but I had a look at the YouTube video.
Curiosity got you.
Aye, he looks very able. For a young player, he looks very adept, very good. Can score all sorts of goals with both feet and with the head, and holds the ball up really well. Very physical. So I've got no doubt at all that him coming in, I would like to think he would be a good addition. But the planning, going back to the planning, the talk was that Kyogo had said months ago that he was intending on moving on in this window. So the wheels in motion were put in play, I believe, months ago. So if we come out this window without a striker replacement, that's a major issue. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. The motto, the battle cry, if you want to call it that, from Celtic's board has always been, and for the past couple of windows, we aim to come out of this transfer window stronger.
Yeah.
That will remain to be seen. Now, if I were to ask you, obviously there's been a lot of moving parts. We've seen peripheral guys go out on loan. There's been people sold off, and of course we now bring in Jota. Now, just at face value, I know it doesn't matter about the numbers, but it's incredible to think that we are getting back Jota and Kieran Tierney, whether it's both right now in January or one there and one in the summer. We're getting 2 guys back. Yes, we know Tierney, there's always going to be question marks about how ready is he going to be from a physical standpoint, how much game time he got, but it's irrelevant because he's got an absolute world-class player there, and it's cost us, well, nothing, or it might cost us a wee nominal fee. But here's 2 guys, mate, that we have generated over many years, of course, because it's been a while since Tierney's been about 25 million each. So the bones, £50 million, 2 players, we're getting them back, mid to late 20s on both of them, arguably in their pomp, the prime years of their career. And at this moment in time, it looks as if it's costing us the thick wedge at £8 million for Jota. And as I say, but there might be a wee nominal fee. There could be another 1.5, whatever, to get Tierney back in now. But bizarre, incredible business, in it? Isn't
it amazing that, and I've said this before about other players like Rogic and how successful we've been, how productive we've been in various positions all over the park, where we've been able to move players on. And genuinely, you would think when they leave, how are we going to replace him? Then Matt O'Reilly comes in, he goes. There's not been too much kind of, Matt O'Reilly, what are we going to do? Well, Jota went. I was devastated. Absolutely loved Jota as well. Jota and Kyogo, and then this merry-go-round happens, It's all over the place with it. But to bring both them back in, we've no lost, serious money. We've gained money in the bank, and we're bringing back two players that absolutely get the club, love the fan base, really, really embrace the fan base. And I think, if I'm being honest, Jota will, the grass is always greener ethos.
Yeah.
I think if Andy's still at the club, like Kuhn or somebody else, for example, who maybe's got another team sniffing about him, Jota's a man for advice. Don't go anywhere.
Definitely. It's a good point, and it's something that we're really not considering, because I listened to that Jota interview, and there was a lot of soul searching there. And he says about how he's a lot more mature, his outlook has come back, he's wanting to be humble, he realises that he's going to have to earn these stripes again, earn the trust of the fans, maybe win them over. And I just find it really reassuring that he's come back with a completely different outlook on his career. I said to Paddy, when he comes back, I anticipate it to be similar to a Rodgers type situation, where he's wanting to come back. He's wanting to prove a point, and you will get, 5.5 years he's signed, that you're going to be getting at least 3 out of him.
It's a brilliant contract. I thought maybe it'd be a 2 or 3 year deal. A 5.5 year contract for Jota. I mean, it's absolute, fantasy stuff. I just think, him coming back in, and as you say, a lot of the stuff, there was a lot of soul searching, there was a lot of really deep stuff came out of his interviews about finding a home, and I think psychologically, by the sounds of it, he's been through the ringer with these moves. I'm sure his bank balance has not been through the ringer. But, he's, by the sounds of it, he sounds like he's been kind of living a kind of different life away from football. Maybe he's just been disconnected. He does look very, very lean and very skinny. I think he's. I was
going to say that, because I was very surprised. I actually saw the pictures, and there was one that someone posted that was a young chap that met him outside, and at first I thought it was Photoshop. I thought that's kid on, and he looks, he's never been a bulky or muscly or big strong guy, but he looks like one of the Russian dolls. That there's a big jaw and you take that one out of it. So, how quickly? I mean, it could be nothing. It could just be, Ronaldo-esque, super lean, super mean, and a ready-to-go fighting machine. But how quickly do you think we're going to need to get him up to speed? Now, you could look at Nicholas Kuhn, say he's slight as well, but that for me was really a bit of a shock when I saw that.
He said himself that he needs games and he wants to get games. So I think the likes of he's not going to travel. He hasn't travelled. I don't think he's not playing, obviously, against Villa. So we can just get him into the gym, get him in. He's been at training already. I like the fact that he was actually talking about how there's so many other people there that he still knows and all that. So that will help him reintegrate. But he will need games. And I think he touched on it himself, saying that his match fitness and everything else is going to need a bit of work.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Realistically, I think you're talking about maybe 3 weeks. I think before he'll be first.
So to come back to that question of Celtic, or that conundrum, we always look to come out a window stronger than we went in. If I were to say to you, Paul, at this moment in time, Jota's back, undoubted quality. Kyogo, talisman, leaves, and let's just say that Tierney materialises. Now, I'm hoping it's not this the case, but if that were to be your lot, at this moment in time, with the window still open, in your opinion, are Celtic in a stronger position?
Without a replacement striker, I just think, before the window opened, we'd looked at various positions in the wings and at centre back and everything else. I think you would really have to have that, the striker situation that has to be resolved. We have to have at least a body in there, and then I would say we're stronger. But if it was left as it is now, with just Ida and Daniel Cummings and whoever else is still at the club at the end of the window, there will be more outbound movements as well. I think there could be a bit more of a trimming in the squad happening as well, which I don't think we can really afford anymore. But I think if we get somebody in to replace the abyss of Kyogo, life after Kyogo, then I'll be a lot happier. But at the moment, I'm still a wee bit tentative.
Talk to me about Kyogo, mate, because he's moved on and it's stirred up a lot of debate. Right, it always happens, as I said earlier before in the show. It's funny how when somebody leaves, that there's a real split. There's always that wee corner of fans. He wasn't that good anyway, and he was never this. And total nonsense, absolute nonsense in my opinion, right? But what did you think of Kyogo? Firstly, the notion that he wanted to, his wording was he wanted to seek a new challenge, essentially saying, and a far better league, which I suppose is fair. But what do you think of the team that he's going to? Rennes, a team that's battling relegation. Yeah, they're playing in a top 5 league. You can maybe even argue that the French league is garbage and that it's got a handful of decent teams and the rest are just trash. But what did you think? I mean, for me, he leaves with nothing but positive thoughts, and I hope and wish him all the best in that. But what's your thoughts in terms of him leaving, the comments that we saw in the league that he's going to? Do you think it's really going to give him what he's hoping for, which is to break into this Japan team?
First of all, my own thoughts on Kyogo. I mean, I could speak all night about him. That early stage of his career under Ange, electrifying, absolutely electrifying. He's finishing, the goals he scored. He just leaves with nothing but great memories, great goals that he's left us. I know there was a wee bit of a drop off towards the end, but there's obviously been this kind of backstory about him changing agents and then obviously looking for a move which we didn't know about. But he still gave his all for the club, and there's a huge thing with the Japanese players about their aspirations to play for the national team, as we've seen. They'll think nothing of jumping on flights and flying across the world to represent Japan at the drop of a hat. They're extremely passionate and patriotic about that, which is great. However, Rennes, I think he's maybe jumped, he's grasped. He's had maybe other offers, and he's thought that's the best one that will get him into the manager's thoughts. And I know the wee guy, it's a Japanese manager, can be a bit, he doesn't exactly always pick the same players.
Condescending as well, aren't he? Certain weeks.
I don't think he rates the league that we're in. However, Maeda and
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Does that not sort of belie that entire point? Because he plays Maeda all the time. He's been taking Hatate more recently, regardless of his ups and downs. But the question I'd ask you then is well, what does that say? Because even when Kyogo was banging in the goals at Celtic, he still wasn't really in the guy's thoughts. Again, not to discredit Kyogo's a player, because I think fantastic, one of the best strikers in a long, long time. But should he maybe be looking more at himself and the way that he plays and what he can offer to Japan rather than the league and the team that he's playing in?
Again, you've got to think about the fact that he's had this change of manager at club level, and then obviously the system that he's then had to kind of readapt to with Rodgers maybe hasn't been something that he's felt that he can be productive within. They have got a wealth of talent, the Japanese team. They've got very, very skillful, very, very adept players and all over the park. So he's probably, I remember seeing a video, in fact, when there was a call-up and he didn't get a call-up to the Japanese squad, and there was a Celtic TV thing, and he was absolutely devastated. He was watching it on the telly, and I
remember that, yes.
And it really is a big deal for him. So anything he can do to get in that Japanese squad is obviously, the World Cup coming up and everything else. He wants to really be part of it, but I don't think he's went to the right place. I really don't.
I don't think that either, mate. I'll be honest with you. But listen, all his owns, but we've seen the statement he brought out. He'll get a bit of a raw deal for using the term old firm, but there you go. I think maybe that wee corner of fans that are like, see you later, they'll be like, fucking old firm.
Told you.
I knew it. The ratometer is high here.
They're the same fans that would have been, ripping the roof off the stadium when he scored these goals against Rangers and European nights and everything else. So fans are fickle, but he leaves with nothing but, adoration from me.
And same with me. I do wish him all the best, as I say, and we'll see how that one pans out. But it is not a Celtic problem. So there is a Celtic problem. We spoke about it because we've got a big void there. Maybe a very small in stature void, big in terms of goals and what he brought to the team. That leaves us with Johnny Kenny, who the jury's still out on. That might just keep him about a wee bit longer, but of course it loses with Adamida. He'll run the line against Villa in the Champions League coming up here, and of course we are looking for the search. In terms of we mentioned the names, how do we fill it? It's something that needs to be done. Christgardens once came up. As I say, I looked at his profile, we spoke about it. He's been consistently at Brøndby. He's sort of maybe had about two and a half or 2 seasons worth of breaking in, steady progression from the first breakthrough season to second. remember, Bromby are one of these, I wouldn't say a peripheral team, but I always describe them, they're like the Aberdeen of that league. They'll have their past peaks, but generally speaking, they're the sort of the third force, if you will, sometimes in this case, further down the table. So his goal returns is good, relevant to the side he's in and where they're at. Other than him, it's pretty much been talk of, and again, it might be nonsense, but a certain Brighton Irish striker as well on loan, which is, let's be honest, that's going to be one that it's a means to an end. It has to be Christgard. It needs to be a guy that's going to come in, hit the ground, bed him in, because we might, or we're not might, we're going to have to qualify for this Champions League again. Should we go on and complete the league win as expected?
January, as I've always said, and I've always had things backing it up. It can be hot or cold, it's not always a good transfer market time to get, proven talent and players that are, a perfect fit. You're going to be looking at loans, you're going to be looking at, players coming in and out and different things. But I think maybe there might be a wee secret, there might be a wee surprise coming. I don't know. Given the notice we've had, I think Rodgers will have been shaking down a lot of these contacts. We've seen this David Pleat scouting network, or for, he's come in out the blue. I think there's more stuff happening than we know, and I think, I suspect, maybe it's my heart on my head, but I don't think Rodgers would have been happy to just take a punt on a young striker, knowing that Kyogo, guarantees us 20 plus goals a season. You're losing that in January. You need to have something to back that up. So I'm pretty sure the wheels would have been in motion, and we're just seeing the kind of starting kind of embers of what will be another signing coming in. If it is Christgard, I've seen a YouTube video. Do I know any more about him? No, I don't. I like what I see, but I liked what I saw with Zaravsky and various others.
Listen, Zaravsky's a guy that gets hard time. He took a bit of time to bed in, and then he became good. He was never super prolific, but again, I get what you're saying there. But in terms of this idea of the loan and getting, again, another big Irishman, this time coming up from Brighton, we look at there's two ways of looking at that one. He's been playing for Brighton in the Premier League regular over last season. I think he's a bit of an injury issue this season. He's played about 12 games. He scored 1 goal. He's been sort of in and out the Ireland setup. Really, it's been a sort of a bun fight for a dead rubber position in Ireland between him and Ida. I've seen some comments of folks says, we've already got a big plank of wood that plays for Ireland that can't score goals. What do we want with another one? But in terms of that, would that do anything for you? Because I think they're just far too similar.
Aye, yeah. I mean, I've only saw him playing for Ireland. Is it Ferguson, isn't it? Aye.
Big Ivan or Ivan or even.
I've only saw him playing once, and he seemed okay. He didn't look, a handful for defenders or anything like that. He just seemed to be a striker that will feed on scraps or, and run about the box, etc. It could be something that Rodgers is maybe thinking of, and maybe could get a tune out of him. Maybe it's just wrong teams, different, management structure, different players run about him that could bring the best out of him, but his numbers don't exactly impress, do they?
No, and we're always going to be linked with it. I think if he's got genuine interest from any of the other Premier League teams, I would probably expect someone like him to go down that route just for simple easier. There's always and it's lazy. Is he a Celtic supporter being, Republic Ireland? I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't care, to be honest with you. But I just thought I'd bring that one up because really it's been Christgard's been the name that's come up, and as I said to Paddy in the last show we done, I'm quite reassured about that because it came up at the start of Brendan Rodgers' tenure. It went quiet, but it keeps resurfacing. So I'd like to think, again, that being the optimum, never count your chickens with Celtic, but if we've got some sort of long-term strategy of scouting him, it's reassuring that we keep going back to that well, and we obviously see something in it, and I would rather that. But as I said, if Celtic couldn't get him in for whatever reason, I believe Bromby are a bit apprehensive to sell him, and rightfully so. But they're talking, if they were to, they're wanting around about £10 million with add-ons. It could be up to about 13.5. So we would be eclipsing our highest fee by some amount. It would be a real statement of intent to spend that, to get Tierney back, to spend what we have on Jota. It would be a huge, huge, huge statement of intent from Celtic. But I think we need to get someone in, and we need to get them in quick. if it can't happen for whatever reason, I am not adverse to a striker, but it needs to be someone with quality. Now, it's easy for me to just chuck that out there, but think of the great striking that we've had before on loan. I'm looking at Bellamy, I'm looking at Keane. Could it be a marquee name like that? Chances are probably not, but at least someone who's got the kind of goal record behind them like that.
Yeah, and that's a problem. January is a very hard time to find that, and it has happened sometimes in the past, but it can be very, very difficult that these players are available and ready to hit the ground running in January. Kvistagarden is one, as you say, that we've obviously been scouting long term and have came back to him. So there must be more than just a wee bit of interest in there, and the boy must have something more than a wee bit of quality. His numbers are decent for his age. He's been playing a decent enough league, where he's getting, plenty of chances to score goals. But it's just making that step up. If he does come, does he hit the ground running and can he handle the pressure of the Celtic shirt?
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about, obviously, players coming and going. We've been sort of saying what we're going to get, who's going to come around. Well, one thing is for sure, the manager's been pretty direct. And another one that he was asked about was this chap right here. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his surname, but that is, of course, a young Norwegian winger. There was chat that Celtic, it broke yesterday, Celtic were apparently initiated talks with this guy for £7 million. The manager was asked straight out, and then in other words, he just went, don't know what you're talking about. Never heard of him.
I don't know what to get to that, I know.
What do you make of that? Now, again, when I just heard that Celtic were apparently looking at this guy, because his name had come up a few times, we mentioned him previously, and I'm thinking, £7 million, brilliant. Maybe this Celtic board are going where you can't take your money away, you type attitude, good to see, and I was all for it. But what do you think of this one, Paul? Because is this maybe just an agent or a club knowing that they've got an asset and they're trying to whip up a wee bit? Because the report says Celtic have approached, but they really don't want to sell him. And I think there was wee quotes around it. And then he rubbishes it. I would normally say that maybe the manager's keeping things close to his chest, but a complete and utter blatant dismissal like that tells me that, at least from his point, there's nothing in it. Do you take that as read for the manager, or are you get any concerns that there could be, remember, here's Marion Shred, another one of these situations where they might be going out and spending money or looking to spend money and bring in a player that's got value in them, but they're not consulting the manager? These two things don't go together, because he said he gets the final say, doesn't it?
Well, that's the strange thing with this boy whose name I can't pronounce either. There's definitely a bit of smoke and a bit of, smoke and mirrors, shall we say, because the information I had been looking at, again, how accurate it is that an approach had been made. And usually, if something's got to that stage, then Rodgers probably wouldn't have any real qualms about talking about it, even if it is just loosely. Like in the press conference tonight, he was still asked at length about Tierney, but yet, although he mentioned that there's interest there and it's going to happen, he still didn't want to talk about it too much because he's not a Celtic player at the moment. He didn't do any of that, as you say, when it was mentioned about this boy. He just shut it down. My other question about this boy is that he's predominantly a right winger, so I believe, is that right? Aye. Does that mean that?
I think, but again, it's one of these guys where he seemed to be quite versatile. But I mean, you look at it. There's no doubt about it with the winging situation here for Celtic. Well, Forrest, let's be honest, great servant, been really good when he's come in, but we can't be looking and really counting on him to be one of our options. But we've got Jota, we've got Maeda, so we're covered there by the left. We've got Kuhn. Yang is still, the jury's well and truly out on him, but you've got the benefit where Maeda can switch, Jota can switch, so there is a wee bit of variation there, but there's no doubt that we do need another winger. I think there was this chap who's apparently been mentioned, and then of course there was Balakwisha. Nothing's come back up with that there, but I just find it very strange, Paul, that this name has come up, the monetary value, the reports for various outlets. Again, it could just be complete and utter mischief from the media, but when you get stories ran by the likes of guys like Anthony Joseph and Sky Sports and stuff like that, somebody somewhere's telling them it. And as I say, I like to think that Celtic are spending money and doing all the right things, but there's still a wee element of just putting something on the manager that he's maybe not get a sight on.
Exactly. I hope that we aren't becoming one of those clubs where, like the Adamida scenario, where clubs know that we're kind of getting towards the end of a window and they're like, aye, he's 7, 8, in fact, make it 10 million, and we are kind of going to them cap in hand. We're going to them basically in a state of kind of, right, well, we'll take a punt, and get this guy in. But I don't know. There's definitely something to this, as you say. It seems a bit strange that there's been a very strong path of journalism. It doesn't seem lazy journalism. It seems as if it's set on facts, where we have, the nuts and bolts have started to get put together on this deal, and then it appears that the manager's shot it down. So I've not got any awareness of this boy at all. I don't know anything about him. I know he's at, I think, an under-21 cap for the country that he plays in, and he's got a wee bit of a record, but I think we'll need to wait and see how that pans out.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. We'll see how that one pans out. But let's get back to the action. Let's get back to the team, because we says there's differences. There's stuff that's going to be happening here. We've spoke about it. It's going to have to be Adamida. It's going to have to be Scales. It's going to be Trusty, and of course, it's going to be Taylor. With Maeda out, it throws up more questions than answers. Obviously, we've got Kuhn there. What are we going to do with this? Are we going to go for the traditional approach and chuck someone who, no disrespect to him, I think this game's a lot beyond him, which would be Yang? Or do we try something a wee bit different, kind of like we've done with Kyogo when we put him out in that wing and we ram the midfield? But the question of who do we play in midfield? Well, you play Hatate out on the left a wee bit more. You play Bernardo, you play Engels, and you play McGregor. Do we go for a all-out central midfielder, spread across and try to make it happen, depending on guys who have shown to have a level of consistency and a level of talent? Or do we go and we chuck in Yang?
Yang would genuinely, I think the game, as you say, is a bit above him. I think that would be, I know he's got his critics, and I haven't seen enough this season to make me think that if he was put in against Aston Villa in a Champions League game, albeit, the status of the game, I just don't know how he would, adapt to that. I think that would be a bit, I don't see Rodgers doing it either. I think potentially what we'll see is, I don't even think an option either. Given Rio's kind of engine, he's not a player that will run up and down that line, I don't think. I think he's more of a thinking, playing these passes like we saw against young boys. And he was putting himself about a bit more in the first half, which was great to see. But I don't see him playing in a wider position, maybe a McCowan or something in there. Or, I don't know how he's going to.
Well, that's the thing. It's real considerations that we've got to make here, and that's actually a good shout. I didn't think there, but we've seen McCowan previously being used in varying positions when he was in D, so there's a bit of adaptability there. But the one thing that is undoubtedly, look, all these Champions League games, you're playing against superior, well, not necessarily always superior, but you're playing by large when it's the bigger teams. You're playing against elite sides in terms of not just quality of players, but fitness and everything else in between. So we need guys that have got an engine on them. And again, guys like Yang will look at an opportunity if they get brought in. I think you bring them off the bench and they're, full of the beans and they want to have a go at it. But being able to keep going, that's the one thing. He's been a player for me that has shown that he can fade quickly in games when the physicality's on. So that's something the manager's really got to give consideration here. We're doing chopping and changing. It's going to be high energy. I think you've got to go with those who've shown that they can keep up with the pace.
Yeah, the likes of the midfield they've got, Tielemans and a few others that will come on to it.
Tielemans and Rodgers, of course, he's well in there.
Very mobile. Wee John McGinn, he'll be sticking his arse into, getting himself involved. He's got a point to prove as well,
Yep.
His boyhood heroes. It's, these kind of strange things that happen in football. He ends up playing against us in the Champions League, Great for him. He'll probably relish that and put himself about. We just have to. I don't know what midfield he's going to go with. I think you've got to. Does Engels play tomorrow? Does he leave Engels out? Will that do Engels harm?
I think he's got it. I think when you look at the options, as you say, I think that we're kind of in a bit of a sticky position, and again, it just comes back to, yes, we're bringing in Jota, and that gives us that gives us some real proper quality coming in, but he's not available. So with the suspension, to Maeda, with the injury still going to Forest, it is quite thin on the ground, and it shows you that particularly in those wing positions, we are light, and it's something that hopefully either over this transfer window or at least in the summer, we're looking to at least add maybe 2 wingers that can be versatile at that, because the strength and depth of actual legitimate attacking options for the wing, just quite frankly, at this moment in time, aren't there. And even if you bring Jota into the fold, which he will be, you've got Jota, you've got Maeda, and then you've got Kuhn. And then once you look beyond that, no disrespect again to Forest, again, you're kind of clutching at straws. So it is important. It is just a wee reminder, particularly again, as we say, with the defensive situation, it's just a wee reminder that we've got the crux, we've got the bones of a very strong team to add on to, but there's still work to be done.
Definitely. The evolution of this squad under Rodgers, I think, will still be a moving picture in terms of when he first came in. The squad that he's got, what he's assembled, it's a mixture of players that were there and players that he's brought in. The Rodgers-isation, if you like, of this squad, where it becomes his full team that he's, got a control over bringing in. I think we'll see more development and more players coming in. But this wee crucial period that we're in now, right at the start of a new year, halfway through a season, we really need to have, done our homework. And you say there's positions all over the park in terms of wingers. And I think we will. I think the next few days, I think there'll be a few surprises. I think he'll have his eye on a couple of players that will come in.
Hopefully, let's have a look at Villa. Let's talk about it. We know it's kind of makes our job a wee bit easier here, because everybody knows Aston Villa. They're right on our doorstep. You're able to see them. But let's talk where we're at with Villa. But obviously, they get in the Champions League. Massive Unai Emery, great achievement for them last year. In terms of where they're currently sitting at the moment, well, they're 8th in the Premier League. 37 goals, they have scored 34, they've conceded 35, they're -1, but look, they're high flying in terms of their respective league, but they're still there. They're a team who are very good going forward. They've got some very accomplished goal scorers, but as we've seen from that they are still leaking goals. They're still there to be scored at. In terms of the Champions League, we mentioned that they're one of 6 sides that are in 13 points, 7 games, 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. So it's 1 loss, and 2 losses and 1 draw. My bad. Let's look at what they've done with it. They've beat some good teams. Notably, the last match they went down to Monaco 1-0. That obviously makes it a wee bit difficult. But looking at what they've done at home, mate, 2-0 against Bologna again. No side to take what you will of that, but beating Bayern Munich 1-0 at home. Taking a draw with Juve at home, these are big teams, and of course, some losses there, very much up and down. Look at the losses. A loss to Club Brugge. It was crazy, that one, the way that penalty came round. That was bizarre. But to lose to Club Brugge, that's something they wouldn't have been expecting to happen to them. And of course, they've also had a 3-2 win away to Leipzig, so they've got a real good cross section of games.
Mm-hmm. I've not been watching them apart from what you've been talking about there. I've only saw a couple of glimpses of them, so I'd be lying if I said I'm getting in-depth knowledge of their squad. But just looking through their team, obviously we've discussed McGinn. I think they're missing Mings. I think he went off an injury at the weekend, and
I think so as well.
So, Leon Bailey, great player. Ollie Watkins, the big boy Duran up front, gives them a lot of versatility. You only need to look at Tielemans, as we've spoken about, and they've got the big boy Kamara. He seems to Onana. It's a real mixed bag, but they are conceding goals, and we know exactly watertight either. So
that's the interesting thing. I mean, look at some of the sides that they've played: Monaco, Leipzig, Bruges, Juventus, Bologna, Bayern Munich, Young Boys. So they have really faced some stern tests there, and they find themselves in a strong position. In terms of Champions League, leading goals. They've scored 9, they've had 4 against, they're +5, they're in a right good position for that, but there's a goal scoring options, and we've named off some of them there. For example, with the strikers, it's either going to be a toss-up, one or the other, Watkins or Duran. Duran's our leading goal scorer in the Champions League. 3 goals, no assists, not that matters, he's there to score goals. But this season as well, 12 goals in all competitions. Look at Ollie Watkins, 10 goals, 8 assists. He maybe contributes a wee bit more for that there. But no matter who we're up against for that striking, Force, it's going to be a tough gig, and the best thing about it for them is, whilst we find ourselves light on strikers, they'll play one, and then they'll bring the other on.
Aye, yeah, they could easily start, as you say, switch it about against a kind of makeshift defence, but they're going to be playing against a defence that's kind of without its key man, if you like, and Carter Vickers. So yeah, I think we'll just need to really do our homework, and whoever we come up against, it's going to be a stern test. They're going to get a real lift off the crowd, as they've done. They've got a great kind of, as I say, it's a wee tight English kind of typical old school kind of environment, stadium in there. So we'll need to see how we got on. But I think the likes of Big Duran, he could cause problems any team at all.
Definitely.
Very mobile, very strong, very strong. And Watkins is a handful as well. So we'll just have to see how we got on. It's a difficult one to call, and I'm not doing predictions anymore after my.
No. I think we both failed on that one, but yeah, that's the thing. We look at it, the strikers that they're going to alternate between, great goal scoring output from here. It's going to be quite interesting because normally we've looked at these games and we've profiled players. There's maybe been a handful of guys and you went, right, they score the bulk of their goals. But again, you've mentioned that John McGinn, 2 goals in the Champions League, an assist there as well. He's 4 assists, 2 goals. It's only 2 goals this season came in the Champions League. But you look at the other guys in the midfield, Tielemans, Rodgers, they have great records this season so far. 7 goals, 5 assists for Rodgers. Tielemans, 2 goals, 6 assists, including 1 goal and 2 in the Champions League. It's going to be quite a surprise, if you will, that we're coming up against a midfield where it's not, they've got one guy that's quite creative and their wingers just create. Pretty much the vast majority of their midfield are chipping in with a healthy amount of goals. Yeah. So we're going to have eyes in the back of your head. And that really, again, it comes back to how we're going to play at this midfield. This is what you need. You need a Hatate to do what he done in his last game and turn up and do that again. Yeah. And hey, look, not to say like I don't want to get rid of Hatate, despite the sort of question marks I've had off him at times. But again, see if he's a guy that's looking at Kyogo moving on to a bigger league and all that. This is a kind of game for him to turn up and make it happen.
I'm always noticing that there's ties that come up where it could be just set, where somebody could grab that with the scuff of the neck, and really, as a footballer, you're thinking, right, this is my chance. Like either tomorrow night, he's definitely going to play. He's got a lot of, critics. He's got the monkey on his back, or off his back with that last goal, but he's got a lot of people obviously doubting him. I think there's going to be opportunity there for a few players, but maybe one thing that might outfox Emery is the fact that we have been kind of inconsistent this season in terms of starting 11s. He's looking at scouting us in the lead up to this game. He's probably been thinking, I've not got a clue who they're going to play at Villa Park. Is this guy Hatate playing? Is that boy Engels playing? Is it going to be, he knows who we're not playing. But yeah, I just hope we can pull off a wee surprise.
Do you think that, obviously we're hoping that we can pull off a surprise? His back's against the wall.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves on. We've got a couple of key players missing. We've just sold off the guy that we looked to score the goals. And I agree with you, for all that we've come on here and criticised Adamida, there was something about that reaction. That was a guy, I know he says he's goal. I'm not getting it, right? I'm not getting him it, but it's irrelevant. It goes in the back of the net and he plays a big part in doing it. I actually think it's a good shot. Normally ask the question, bad miss or good save. I think it was a very good save, and thankfully it fell into the defender, goes into the net. But you saw that reaction from him, and he, no doubt in his head, I think all those guys would have known, as we've said about Kyogo, this was months and months, and this was vocalised by him. He's known that I'm going to be carrying the can here. I'm going to be the guy who's going to have to do it. So I think that was a reaction to somebody letting it all out. And look, he gets down there, we're talking about potential scores to settle. He's getting down there, coming from the English League, wanting to show up and then turn up. Look at Trusty again. He's down there wanting to show up, and put in a good account of himself. And of course, there's always going to be just the general, we are Celtic, they think it's a farmers league. And it gives it a wee sort of bit of extra edge where we go down there and it could be just something as primal as that. They think yous are shite, by the way.
Yeah.
It gets a team up for it.
Biggie does just got to go in there and just mix it up. It will maybe mean that I kind of change to our style. We'll not be, trying to feed flash balls in the way we have been to Kyogo. We might kind of go in a different style.
The Celtic go direct. Do we just do something that we would normally not do and try to lean on the physicality of Ida rather than try to be smart?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that, and it's worked out for previous Celtic teams where there's been the likes here, big strikers, and just play into them, play into Hearts and play into Sutton, going back a long time. But I like that. I like that style of physicality in a centre half that will get in, like we McGinn in the midfield. I like people to put their physicality in, put their body in. But we're talking about the Champions League, and that goal that Ida gets, luck like that has been something that we have had no chance of getting anywhere near in the Champions League. In games going past, campaigns going past, that's the kind of goals that we're getting.
That's the goals we lose.
So we've now kind of turned that wee psychological corner where, put balls into places, make that run. I've been a big advocate this season of putting, we seem to be doing all the sideways stuff and down the wings and balls in, and it's that horseshoe thing that people talk about. Pain in the arse, that comment, but try something different. And what Hatate done for the goal, that long ball, look up, there's a run, ping it onto him and see what happens. And we're through, we've done it. I just hope there's a bit more of that tomorrow night, and a kind of ball fest and a ball retention game. Go down there and put on a show and try something a bit different.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get a boring game. I think we'll get an open game. Hopefully we can give a good account of ourselves. Hopefully we can come away with it somewhere. We'll look across the pitch. Yeah, there's guys that are missing, but there is no undoubtable a large amount of qualities. And again, albeit makeshift defence, simple things like just looking at, we saw the cat-like reactions of Kasper Schmeichel in that last game. I'm not saying that he's a stick on to have a shutout against the great players I've got, but just those wee small things. Another guy that's coming back to the Premier League, he's proven he can do it. I'm just sort of thinking these are the kind of guys that could rise to the occasion. Absolutely. And you feel a wee bit better that if you get a shot put into Kasper Schmeichel, it's not like you've got the Baniakin goals or something like that. So again, it's maybe been a wee bit hopeful, but I look across the team and I think there's enough quality there for Celtic to cause them problems. I think, as I say all the time in these games, being away against the team who are going to be highly more fancied, again with our home crowd, you're going to have to ride the lightning for periods, but we've shown that we can do it. And again, no disrespect, not to belittle Villa because they're a fantastic team, but are they as good as, for example, Atalanta, who were expected to completely destroy us, and after that game we're destroying teams 5-6-0 after it? Are they better than them? No, I don't think so.
Trusty played that night as well and played very well, Trusty was great that night. So, I mean, it's there. You can do it. You're talking about ride the lightning and, the old, what was it, Klopp used to call it, heavy metal football.
Yeah.
I think it will be one of those games. But you're talking about Schmeichel as well. Schmeichel's one of these guys who's just loving life at the moment. And I think when a player's in that mental space where they're just enjoying their games, they're turning up, they're having shutouts, they're getting interviewed by Joe Hart after the game, and the two of them are just waxing lyrical about how good it is to be at Celtic, and just Schmeichel's just come in and inherited all that stuff that Hart banged on about, and we absolutely loved him.
No bad for a big fat guy that's apparently done here.
Absolutely. His double save, the save at the end, that felt like a goal when he jumped on that ball at the end. And we, obviously the stuff comes out later on with Kyogo, which kind of took the gloss off it a wee bit. But at the end of the day, we're going there tomorrow night, and I think we've got the old Battle of Britain adage, that will come out and all that. But we go there. It's a game that we're probably. I don't want to say that I don't fancy us, but I think with the players missing, it could be a bit of a difficult one to call. So I'm going to. I would take a draw.
Well, it won't be long till we find out. Absolutely. I'm going to say this, as I said, I'll come back to what I said at the start. I think that Celtic have grown in this competition.
Yep.
We've seen a real development, and I'm hoping that the bit of pressure off them means that they know that they're missing a few guys. It'll maybe give people an opportunity. It'll give us a chance of other guys to prove a point, to express themselves, to play a wee bit free. Yes, you're going to want to win. Yes, there's going to be nerves. However, I think Celtic have been at their best when there hasn't been huge expectation on them. You know, look, we won the first game. It was great. Got us off to a running start. We get hammered off, we get absolutely hammered off Dortmund. The less said about that, the better. But then we started to find ourselves. We're like, right, look, we're neither out of this. We're neither, completely running away with it. There was that sort of play it as it comes. And it wasn't for me until there was you were really knocking on the door where it was the dizzy talkie, you could get yourself in automatic qualification, where I felt that we maybe wobbled a wee bit and dropped the ball. I'm looking at the Dino Zagreb game, I'm looking at the Bruges game. Those were the two games where we were at a real point where we knew you were in touching distance, the pressure was there, and I felt as if, I don't know, that developing to the side maybe into the psyche a wee bit and affected it, because when we knew that we had to go and make it happen, and it wasn't necessarily, again, I know it maybe sounds a bit like you're contradicting yourself here, but we went through that sticky patch. But once it's like, right, back to basics, reset, we had a brilliant performance against the young boys. The ball was in net 3 times. All right, the way we got there was a classic. But I just feel that now that bridge has been crossed, we find ourselves back at the stage where it's almost like you can either finish there or you can finish there. Either way, you're through. And that might just be an element of carefreeness that will help us out here.
It takes me back to the comment I made about Rodgers and his team and finding his own unique stamp to put on this, and it's there. I think the players that are in the squad at the moment have learned a hell of a lot about themselves, and as a team, just during this Champions League campaign, it's been, you see the teams, you see the draw in this new league format, and you're thinking, right, this could be good for us. Well, it has. It's worked out really good for us financially, and where we've ended up, the fact that we're going to Villa Park tomorrow night and we're already in the latter stage. So, I just think the players that are there have got a lot of experience, probably a bit more experience than a lot of people give them credit for. And I think it will stand them in good stead. And somebody's just get the chance tomorrow night to go down there and try and make an impression. If we can just keep them out and defend really, really well against, as you say, good strikers.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, listen, Paul, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit and talk about it. I'm buzzing for the game. I can't wait. It's going to be. I'm actually going mental because it's going to be the first couple of beers that I've had in well over a month, because I had sacked all that. I don't do this dry January patter, but every time, a couple of times throughout the course of the year, I like to give myself, I call it a wee circuit breaker, and I like to take it away. But I'm off for a week now, and I'm going to enjoy it with a couple of beers. No matter what, my hair down, I know. You letting your hair down?
It's an exciting prospect, and it's a fantastic time to be a Celtic fan. And I know we come on here and we have our wee moments where we're talking about different players, and we're only trying to be objective and discuss, goods and bads and everything else. But what a time it is to be a Celtic fan. Jota's back in the building. I'm absolutely made up. Sad to see Kyogo go, but you know what? We're still in a really good place. We've got time in the window. We've got plenty of money in the bank. Hail, hail.
Exactly. Plenty to talk about, and as of always, we will be here to cover it. As we says, as and when, if Tierney traps up, we'll be here to talk about it. If we get this striker, we'll be here to talk about it. After the game, win, lose or draw, we'll be here to talk about it. We'll be here to break it down, and hopefully you come to join us. So, Paul, thank you very much for taking the time again, and to everybody for tuning in and watching us. Leave your comments below. Let us know how you think this one's going to pan out, and until the next time, you take care of yourself, and as always, hail, hail.